In this video, I'd like to just take a few moments to work through some of the exercises from Chapter 3 and to make sure that you know what you're doing and that you understand some of the principles behind the lesson and the transliterations and the shavas that we've talked about. So let's look at 3.7, the exercises for the Ross textbook. We'll look at Section A, and for my particular homework assignment, I believe I've only asked you to work on numbers 1 and 2. Okay, so we'll do some of the ones in 1 and 2, and then we'll look at some of the other exercises. So let's start with the first one. Now remember, in English, you're reading from left to right, even when we're reading transliteration. But when we transliterate into Hebrew, we're going to be moving from right to left. So in your homework, your number 1 should look something like this, starting on the right side, and then the first word on the right should be the word Hebron. Nevi'im would then come second, and so forth, okay? So let's just jot these things down. So we have an H with a dot, which is the chet. We have an E with no line above it. So this is the short E, which is the sigil. The B with the line is a bait, and when you see the line present, that means that there's no dot. So remember, plus line in English is minus dot in Hebrew. Plus dot in Hebrew is minus a line in English. So this bet has no dot, no dagesh in it. And then I have an R for resh. So we'll do the resh. An O with the happy party hat. That is the Holam Vav, the historically long O, and then the noon. Now, you might be tempted to do a noon here like this, but remember, noon has 2 forms, a final and a non-final one. This is a final noon, so we need to make sure that we do the final noon here. Now, there we have Hebron. Now, all of this is fine and dandy except for one thing. And that is, if you notice that this beit is standing next to a resh, a consonant followed by another consonant. And that's what I've written here. In Hebrew, and this was a rule that we learned back in chapter 2, in every Hebrew word, every consonant has associated with it a vowel or a shava symbol, except for the final consonant. So this consonant has a vowel. This consonant has nothing. This consonant has a holam vav, and then the final noon has nothing. So there's something missing here. Now there is no vowel after the beit, but I need a sign. And what sign does Hebrew give? It's going to be a shava that is of the silent variety. So hev, silent, ron, Hebron. Okay? So keep in mind, silent shavas in the middle of a word mark a closed syllable, and that is exactly what we have. Hev is consonant, vowel, consonant. Ron, consonant, vowel, consonant. This is a closed syllable, so the bet belongs with the hev. All right? So we're going to put a silent shava under it to mark it as a closed syllable. And if I were dividing, I'd put the line right there, Hebron. Now let's look at the second one, Nevi'im. Nevi'im. What do I want to see here? A noon. And then there is the raised, the superscripted E, which is a vocal shava. Now this makes sense in that a shava under the first letter of a word is always vocal, right? Then I have a bet, and that bet is a begad kafat letter. There is a line under it, which means I don't put the dot here. Nev. And then I have an I with a hat. That's a kirik yod, Navi. Then this little apostrophe-like symbol is an aleph, another historically long I, the kirik yod, and then the final mem. Now remember, mem can have a non-final form and a final form. We're going to use the final form here, which is basically a box with a line over it. So nevi'im, nevi'im. All right. Next I have ben yamin. I have a beit, a B, and this one is minus line, which means in Hebrew it's going to be plus dot. B, an I with nothing over it, so it's a short I, a kirik. Noon, it's not a final noon. yamin. So I'm going to put a yod. An A with a line over it is a long A, a kamet. Mem, Kirik Yod, that has the party hat there, and then the noon has to be a final form. Okay, now notice this noon is closing the syllable bin yamin, but there's no symbol under it. Every consonant in a Hebrew word must have either a vowel or a shavah. So this consonant has a vowel, this one does not. This yod has a vowel, mem has a vowel. The final consonant doesn't have to have one. So I need a symbol that marks this as a closing consonant, and I get a silent shavah. So bin yamin. Bin yamin. And then I have mitzrayim here. Mem, Kirik, short I. This S with the dot under it is a tzadi. Resh. So can you guess what needs to go here? The tzadi goes straight into a resh. There's no sound after the tzadi, and it's closing the syllable. I need a silent shavah. Mitzra, have an A. There's no line over it. That's an accent mark. So I'm going to put the accent mark there. Short A pathak, yod, kirik, with nothing over it. So it's a short kirik, short I, and then a final mem. Okay, so that is mitzrayim. Mitzrayim. This is the word for Egypt, by the way, in Hebrew. Mitzrayim. My accent is on that resh. Mitzrayim. Okay. So let's see. Let's just do this last one, Elyon. I'm not going to do everything here today, but I do want to make sure that we get some of these principles there. Now remember, the backwards apostrophe is the opposite of the aleph in terms of its direction, and it is the other guttural that sort of sounds like an aleph, and it's the ayin. L with a short E. That's a sigol, and a L for lamed. Now I go straight to a yod, and so this consonant vowel consonant is followed by a consonant with no vowel sound here, so I need a silent shavah. L, Y, O. That's a holem vav with the O with the party hat, and then the final noon. El, yon. So every consonant has a vowel or shavah symbol with it. Ayin has its sigol, lamed has its silent shavah, yod has its holem vav, and then the final noon. Okay, so elyon, that means highest. All right, good. With number 2, there's a couple of vocal shavas here, and I even see compound shavas, so we'll do a couple of those. Okay, so number 1 is Edom. Edom. Now notice I have the apostrophe first, so that's the aleph. And E, and notice there's a little cup here. So this is going to be the katef sigol. So that's how it looks. Sigol with a shavah symbol associated with it. That is one symbol. And then the D, which is a dalet, and it has a line under it. Dalet is a begad kafat letter. Plus line in English means minus dot in Hebrew. The holem vav, and then the mem, which has to be the final form since it's the last letter. Okay, so that's how you spell Edom. 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 The next one is Shemuel. Shemuel. This is a name in Hebrew for Samuel. This S has the symbol over it, so that's a sheen. Now there is a superscripted E, which represents a vocal shavah. Mem for the M. The U with the party hat is the shurik, shemu. Have an apostrophe. That's aleph. And an E with a line is a long E. It's a sere. And then a lamed. Shemuel. Every consonant besides the last one has a vowel or shavah. Sheen has a shavah, mem has a shurik, Aleph has a seri. Shmuel. Shmuel. Okay. And then we have chasadim. Chasadim. Let's do that one. We have a H with a dot, which is a chet. And look, I have an A with a little cup over it. That is a compound shava. Now it's an A with that, so I need the A vowel with the shava symbol next to it, and it's the katef pathak. Cha, S, which is just a plain old Samic, and then an A with a line over it. That's a long A, a kametz. Chasa, dalet, right? There's a line, means no dot. Chasadim. Kirik yod, the I has the party hat, so that's a kirik yod, a historically long I, and then the final mem. Chasadim. Chasadim. Okay? All right. I think that's all I want to do for this one. Now, I did want to point out one thing here, and I've circled it for you in red. You have these E's that are superscripted, and then you've got this A that's superscripted, and that is puzzling to several of my students. Why in the world is there a superscripted A, and what possibly could that be transliterated into Hebrew as? And the happy answer is that this is not to be transliterated at all. This is a footnote. You see, there is a superscripted A here, and footnotes are usually superscripted, and they tell you to look down at the bottom of the page or in the side margin to find a corresponding letter or number, depending on the nature of the footnote. Here it's using the letter A, and then what information that was. So what this is just saying is that the vowel is written inside a final kaf. So if you look at this example, and I didn't ask you to do this, but some people are a little eager and they do extra assignments. I want to make sure you understand this. Dar kaha is dalet. There's no line under, so I have plus dot. Pathak, short A, resh, and then it goes straight into a kaf. So there's got to be a silent shava here. Dar, k, vocal shava, and then ka has a final kaf with an A under it. This is what it's telling you. So ka looks like that. Dar kaha. And this K, the first one, has minus line, so plus dot. Dar kaha. Silent shava, vocal shava. Notice again, all you're seeing in your transliteration is the vocal shava because silent shavas are not represented in transliteration. You know they're there in Hebrew if you have a consonant running into another consonant with no vowel sound between them. The first consonant's closing, and the second consonant is beginning to open the next syllable. Okay? So dar kaha. Dar kaha. All right. Let's take a look at the next section. Now here on the B section of the exercises, I've only asked you to do the first two verses. This is a reading from 1 Chronicles. And the way the text is laid out here for us, this is actually the Masoretic text. This is the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia, which is the printed edition of the Hebrew Bible. And it provides all of the Masoretic accent marks. Okay? Now, what we have, it's actually not exactly all of the accent marks from the Masoretic text, but he is beginning, Ross is, to introduce you to some of the Masoretic accents beginning in this chapter. Now, here's what I want you to notice, first of all, before we look at the transliteration. So what you have here is a vertical line under the nun, and then a double diamond. And this is the end of the verse. This double diamond is known as a sof pasuk. And if you look down, you will see that there's a B here, right? And that is a footnote marker to walk down to the bottom. And there is a footnote. The Masoretic accents serve as sentence punctuation, as well as serving to indicate the stressed syllable of words. Saluk is the strongest disjunctive accent. It has the force of an English period. It is accompanied by sof pasuk, which means end of verse. All right, so let's go back up here. And what we're looking at then are two symbols that you haven't seen previously. The saluk is an accent mark, and the sof pasuk is a verse divider. Okay, so it will show up as a double diamond in printed text or just two dots. Okay, so of course I'm not going to do diamonds when I write a sof pasuk. I'll just put the two dots there. So sof pasuk, end of verse. It marks the end of a line. Saluk is an accent mark. So sof pasuk is not an accent mark. It doesn't tell you where the stress of any word is. It's only telling you that you've come to the end of a segment of text. All right? The saluk will occur in tandem with the sof pasuk in the stressed syllable of the final word of a verse. So anytime you have a verse or a sentence that has a sof pasuk, there will always be a saluk accent mark in that final word right before the sof pasuk. They go together. And here's the important part. The Masoretes, when they used their accents, they did not use these little doohickeys here that we've been learning about to mark non-final stress. The accents used by the Masoretes were of a wide variety, and they're rather complicated, and so it's not wise to introduce a beginning Hebrew student to all the Masoretic accents at once. Ross is going to introduce them to you sort of piecemeal, and really the most important ones. And the thing to know about the Masoretic accents, though, is that the accent marks that they use are used to mark the stress wherever it is, even on the final syllable. Okay? So even words that normally get a final syllable stress, and we haven't been marking the accent for those because we just assume final syllable stress, Masoretic accents are going to show up even on final syllable stress words. So if you look here, this is the final vowel. This is anosh, anosh. The accent is on the O of anosh. Notice the saluk here goes under the consonant whose vowel is stressed, and because the holon vav is off to the left, it's not under the consonant. So the saluk here is only going to go on the consonant, okay? It doesn't go under the vowel. In other situations, the consonant whose vowel is stressed will have the vowel under it, and so the saluk will be next to it, as in right here. Yared, yared. Notice my saluk is next to the vowel, but it's under the consonant. That's the place it belongs. The consonant whose vowel is stressed has the saluk under it, and then the sof pasuk next to it. Now, this was referred to as a disjunctive accent. What is a disjunctive accent? It's an accent in which you pause on the stressed syllable before you move on to the next words, and it tells you that the word that's being stressed in this way belongs more with what comes before than with what comes after. So it creates a kind of disjunction between the words. So a disjunctive accent marks a word as being disjoined from what comes after it at some level. We'll talk more about disjunctive accents in coming chapters. Okay, so what do we want to do with this? Well, let me just make one more point here. If you have a lengthier verse in Hebrew, not just a couple of words, but maybe 10 words, what will often happen is your verse will be divided between two accent marks. So you have a string of words, and about halfway through, an athnak will be another Masoretic accent that will be on the last word of that first half, and that's a disjunctive accent mark to basically create a division between the verses. And then when you get to the end of the second half, the saluk will be in the last word, and followed by the sof pasuk. Wherever you see athnaks and saluks, what that's telling you is that the word with the athnak disjunctive accent mark goes with the words that come before, and then the word that comes after goes with what follows, and the word that has the saluk goes with what comes before, and then not with what comes after. Okay? So we'll have some practice looking at this as we go on. In 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 1 through 6, what we really have are a list of names, familiar names if you know the Bible. If you know the book of Genesis, for example. Again, I'm not going to do all of these, but we'll do a couple. All right, so Adam you've already known and seen. Shet you have. Let's do Enosh. Remember, in English transliteration, we're going to move from left to right. So the aleph is an apostrophe symbol. The segol here has a shavas symbol with it, so this is the katef segol, and this is going to be transliterated as an E, and the cup. Nun is an N. I'm not going to mark an accent mark here because the accent is going to be on the final syllable. The holum vav is the O with the party hat, and then this symbol with the dot on the right is shin. Okay, it looks like that. So enosh, enosh, enosh. So stress is marked explicitly with the Masoretic accent on the final syllable, but since I assume final syllable stress, my English transliteration does not have to put an accent mark here. Okay, so enosh. Let's look at this word here, K-non. K-non. This kof is not a K, but a Q symbol. There's a sere, which is an E. Normally, a sere would have a line there above it, but notice I've got a yod following it. So this is the sere yod vowel, so I need the party hat here. And you may be wondering, why don't I treat this yod as a consonant and do something like that? And the answer is found by looking below the yod here. What do you see below the yod? The answer is nothing. There's no vowel associated with that consonant because that's not a consonant. In a Hebrew word, every true consonant will have a vowel or a shavas symbol with it. This consonant has a vowel. This nun has a vowel. The final consonant doesn't have to have anything. So if that yod were a consonant, there would be a shava or a vowel here. Since there's nothing, it must be a mater yod, and it's got to be part of the sere yod. Okay, so I go from sere yod to then the consonant, which is nun, a kametz, which is a long A, and then a final nun, which in English I don't distinguish, right? Just the mere fact that the nun is at the N is at the end of the word would tell me that that's a final nun in Hebrew. So K-non, K-non. All right, and then let's go ahead and we'll do this last one here. So we have M-ha-lal-el, M-ha-lal-el. The mem is an M in Hebrew. There's a pathak, which is a short A, so I just put the A with nothing. Hey is an H. Here I have a katef pathak, a pathak with a shava symbol. This is a compound shava. That's an A, the line over it, or a cup. M-ha-la, I have a lamed, and an A, which is a short A, and then another lamed with a shava. Here's the question. Is this a silent shava or a vocal shava? You have to know that to know whether to put a superscripted E here or leave nothing there. The answer is you look to the right. Is that long or short? That is a pathak. That is short, and so the shava is silent, so I'm not going to put anything here. I go straight to the aleph, and then sere, which is a long E, and then a lamed. So this is pronounced mahalalel, mahalalel. Okay, so there you go. Let's do the last one. Yared. This is the name Jared. Yared. I have a yod, an A, and here is the Saluk accent mark. That's a long A, so I'm going to put the line over it there. Okay? We'll talk about the accent here in just a minute. Let's do the resh, the segol, which is the E with nothing. It's a short E, and then a dalet. In Hebrew, it's a D. Dalet is a begad kafat letter. It's minus dot, which means plus line. Now, where's the accent here? It's on the first syllable. It's yared. Now, if the accent were on the final syllable, I wouldn't mark it. But in Hebrew, when the accent's not final, my English transliteration will indicate that the accent is there. So I'm going to put that accent above the vowel. Yared. Yared. The accent goes below the consonant whose vowel is stressed in Hebrew, but the accent goes over the vowel itself in the English transliteration. Okay? So yared. So there you go.